he was wondering, he was thinking whether I was still in Nigeria. And he believed that if things like that continue to happen, people will become more patriotic. The zeal to support our government and protect government property will be there. The discourage that people are feeling that making them go into crimes will reduce. I'm proud to say that during the NSAS, the people protected the rail facilities. Even when they were burning things in Lagos, the police came out, but the citizens ensured they protect that new building, they protect the training school, the new training school that is coming up. They protected the hospital by laying, coming out to say, please don't touch this. This is a good thing that government is doing. So I believe when they know government is serious, you have better citizens. But when they know the government is cheating, that is where the problem is. We just have to try and make sure that we do the right thing as much as possible, so that you see, you look at those on top and they will copy. So things in Nigeria, people just think that it's easier to get easy than to work hard. But when they see somebody working hard, they also know and respect that person. I think the government is not making noise. They are working silently and they are working hard. I think some Nigerians are recognizing that, because if we are blowing our trumpet on what we have done on rail, I think the trumpet would have been gone by now. But the people using it, you see, once we have one incident in Kaduna, Abuja, it became a problem. Just one in 5 years, which means people now, I don't blame them. They are keeping us on our toes. Because of that, we also, the staff, not just the management, are now on their toes to ensure they have to do things to make sure that because Nigerians can't tolerate failure, especially as rail operation.
Let me just hold you there for now and go to Akinola. Akinola, quite amazing this year was, besides COVID-19, we had flooding across the country. And despite this flooding, the resilience was there by the farmers, and we got to know in one of the episodes of Tuesday Live that flooding in itself is not a problem, but how to channel the water and use it for irrigation or agricultural purposes. Flooding 2020 and farming within the year ahead of 2021. What's your analysis?
I really sympathize with government, because when we talk of what the people really need on a daily basis, they need food, they need water. Now, with the challenges that we are having, when you talk to people, they come to you, they will say, oh, food prices have skyrocketed. You cannot get this, you cannot get that. And I work in government before, and I know that one of the plans that government normally have in mind is to make people that we have enough food and then we have enough water. But what do you do in a situation like this where people that are going to the farm, they are afraid for one reason or the other, and maybe they are not able to produce what they will have produced to make sure that people can afford what is being produced. That's why I say I sympathize with the government. Government is not the cause of it. The challenge we are having is natural. You plan, and when you plan based on your policies, you expect the best. But when you don't get the best, what do you do in the situations like this? Other than that, government will simply have to try as much as possible to see what can be done with the security situation. Look at the challenges between the farmers and the housemen. Look at the challenges. This is even enough to drive as many people as possible away from going farming, and it is already happening. But is this unsolvable? I believe it can be solved. With God, all things are possible. So let's just hope that, as I said the other time, that year 2021 will turn out to be something that will be better for us. I know federal government, state government, local government, they are doing everything possible. When we talk of water resources in particular, you have water for agriculture, you have water for water supply, you have water for hydropower. And look at what water can do. And this water we are talking about, especially for the people, is potable water. Not just any water. Otherwise, if you just put any water on the table for people, that's the source of diseases. So government must be involved in making sure that they do all they can to supply the population what the population wants. The challenge also has to do with, in terms of our foreign exchange. What has happened because of all this problem of COVID-19 and other things that have prevented traveling and all sorts of things. We have not been getting enough of the resources we needed. That's a big challenge on its own, because government needs money to be able to get this thing done. And where it cannot, what do you do? And this is why at times they go to National Assembly to ask for the so amount of loan to be able to carry on their responsibilities. This is why I say my prayer is that God will change this thing for us in the coming time that will come. One other area I want to talk about is this area. I think you must have heard of recent, of the water law, which has been controversial since the year 2017. Year 2017, the 8th National Assembly, they even had to drop it. And then it brought up in year 2020. What is the challenge really? The challenge really is that the states, by the Constitution, they have control over the land where they are. They have control for the development of that land, and they have control for the inland water for that land. Now, water has no boundary. The two big rivers we have, River Niger, River Benue, they just flow. And as they flow, they pass from one state to another state. When it gets to a particular state, that state has responsibility to be able to make use of that water. But if you look at maybe what is happening with the new law, they just believe that this thing is going to be taken away from us. And that whatever we want to do now, they have to go maybe begging. So these are some of the things that I believe the National Assembly will look at, so that there's a balance for us to be able to get this done at the federal, at the state, and at the local government level. Thank you.
During the course of the year, in line with the developments and the fears and the challenges we faced, there was this fear against hope. But when interventions came in from all fronts to salvage the economy, mostly for the SMEs, there was this preaching by government, hope against fear. How do you align with this?
Dependent on governments agreeing at all levels to make sure that, because federal government...
Professor Kenife, I direct the question of Professor Kenife, please.
To make sure that maybe power is supplied.
I said, within the period of review, there was this fear against hope, but it later turned from hope against fear, with interventions for government to revive the economy and rejig all sectors, especially the SMEs. How do you react to this?
Is that me? Right. I think there is hope because the intervention from government has been quantitative. Both the fiscal and monetary intervention were measured and quantitative. Measured in the sense that if you look at the monetary, first of all, we are lucky that the finance sector did not collapse, because normally for many countries the COVID transformed from health crisis to financial crisis. But the CBN intervened massively by granting statutory forbearance to the banks to restructure their loans, and still continued with intense banking risk-based supervision, holding down the non-performing loans to around the 5% prudential guideline, holding up the capital adequacy ratio, and still getting the banks to pour money into the real sector via differentiated cash reserve ratio, quite apart from the direct interventions where it pushed 50 billion to the MSME, informal sector and household, and then increased it to 100 billion, 100 to 150 billion. And the significance of that intervention, the pattern of that intervention, is that whilst on one hand everybody looks at output, revive output, push investment into output to sustain the jobs, but you can't ignore consumption. 80%, 84% of the GDP in terms of consumption is from household. Government is only about 5.7%. So you must make sure that not only our policy helping output to increase, but the means to purchase them must be there. Otherwise, it will come back again. So that was very good. Then on the fiscal side, the fiscal intervention was uncountable. They went for the fiscal policy, the economic sustainability plan, which now dimensioned various areas, about 2.3 trillion, and then they had action going out to 700 and something thousand, 40,000 people to be 774,000 young people, which will going to start in the next 1 or 2 months. But then many other palliatives were there for the weakest and the poorest of the poor. So you have balance, and in fact, to be honest with you, there are areas of strength, to be honest, which this COVID-19 enabled us to exploit. We returned into our January to December budgetary programming, and then in addition to that, we had 2019 Act in line with the 2020 budget regime. We have 2020 Act in line with 2021 budget regime, and all of them in the last 2 years have actually meant that we need to commend the House of Assembly for actually keeping to the promise to return us sustainably to the December to January to December round. So all of those are, we haven't seen government, praising themselves for that, but they're very, very important things that have been achieved in macroeconomic management and public finance management. So all of these areas have actually made sure that we didn't see the depth of recession that have been predicted. So if we continue along this line, then a recovery is possible in the first and second quarter of next year. So let's not ignore that. But I need to draw the attention of our discussion to the interrogating the railway program. Now, the reason why my opening statement was focused on the railway is this. When ships come to Nigeria, they are usually Panamax carrying 16,000 containers. They stay in high sea, and then four vehicles will go there, 4 smaller ship will go and transship and bring them to Apapa Port and Tinkan and others. Now you look at what happens. We're having this gridlock with tiny ship bringing 4,000-5,000 containers. What's going to happen when you have that same Panamax carrying 16,000 into Lekki, deep sea port, and then we have 6 other deep sea ports in the offing. You have Ibaka deep sea port, you have Badagry deep sea port, you have Bayelsa deep sea port, you have Ibom deep sea port, you have Cross River looking at Bakassi deep sea port. What is going to happen? How are you going to move those goods? That's where railway is very important. Now let's look at the conjecture. Look, Lagos to Ibadan, 120-kilometer highway, you have public right of way. Public right of way, 90 meter apart. Now that's federal asset. If you consider that by 2050, Lagos population will move from 25 million people to 75 million people. Where are they going to locate? Where are they going to stay in Lagos? Then you look at all these deep sea ports coming up. What's going to happen? Are people going to move into the sea? But within this 120 kilometer between Lagos and Ibadan, federal right of way, you can dot this area with 5 satellite cities and then have ICDs, inland container depots, all along there. People do not need to enter Lagos because of any transportation. So what then happens is this: in every 1 hour or every 10 minutes in the night, 10 hours over the night, you can have train go past you every 10 minutes, carrying equivalent of 30 trailers, containers, passing you. Now, which means that 10 multiplied by 10 hours in a day, then multiply by 2 days. In 2 days, you can empty one ship. You can move the 5,000 containers of one ship out of Lagos into the ICDs. So people can go and clear their things along the ICDs. Now, look at the revenue implication. Now, 200,000 naira is what it costs to move one container from the seaport to anywhere in Lagos, but it has gone to 1.8 million naira. Let's say that we are going with the 200,000. 200,000 naira times 5,000 ship containers is 1 billion naira. So Nigerian Railway could be making 1 billion naira in 2 days. Just moving these things out. I'm talking about only small seaports like Tinkan Island. Railway can be earning 1 billion naira in 2 days, moving these goods to inland depot, just because you just have 30 to 50 heads that can move them out. So I think we need to think, and once the private sector hears this kind of figure, they will tell you, look, wait a minute, we want to run this. Because they don't need government money, they will move in because they can see the money. And I think you need to think very seriously about this. Otherwise, the whole thing, and then this is even more important with Africa continental free trade. I'll tell you why. With all these aggregation of seaports in Nigeria, Nigeria will become a major hub for seaport in Africa. And why is this very significant? If you look at the cheapest cost of transporting from America, from Canada, from Brazil, from Europe into Africa would be Nigeria. And that will be about $1,500 per container. But on the other hand, the cheapest destination from India, Japan, China, and all the Southeast Asia is Mombasa. Now there is a rail program from Mombasa and Lamu all the way to Cameroon. All you just need is to link Nigeria. In the same way, there's also power pool from DR Congo all the way to Cameroon. All you know is just into Nigeria. We can take 10,000 megawatts from DR Congo. They are doing their Inga 1 and 2 is 40,000 megawatts. Okay. Now, but now look at what happens, the economics. With $1,500 dropping goods container from the Far East to Mombasa, and then the same. It saves you $1,000 per container just having to go down Cape Town and come back to Nigeria, or vice versa. So the rail will do the business. That cost, instead of costing you extra $1,000 per container, the rail will just take small money, and then you have goods moving. You will have endless traffic between the continent, just because we are now seeing the railway line taking its position in this development agenda.
Analysis for you. But quickly, let's take some reports now, and beginning from Lagos, in sustaining the conversation tonight.
Call it an unprecedented year of unusual happenings, you are not making a mistake. 2020 is a year many people would live to remember due to uncommon occurrences that characterized the year. Businesses crumbled, jobs were lost, world economies stood still.
Most of the importers who had their goods in Lagos, they kind of inflated the price. Not ordinarily, one would not blame them because they were not able to travel during that period.
People that used to come to us, they cannot come into us because they are not going anywhere. They really affect us to record that to feed our family very, very hard.
The tourism industry is the hardest hit because all the protocols in order to prevent this COVID-19 pandemic is against the processing and the function of tourism.
This was due to global challenges occasioned by the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic, decline in the prices of crude oil in the international market, and of course, dwindled internally generated revenue of most countries of the world, including Nigeria. Ogun State government says 2020 is a blessing in disguise.
Broiler project is there, the rice project, the aquaculture project, and then the linkage program for young people and treasured people to agriculture. I said,
some people said 2020 is not part of their calendar. God is not working with numbers. He works as a miraculous God, and he can, what you have not been able to achieve for 10 years can happen within 10 days.
Other traders are, however, optimistic that 2021 is loaded with lots of prospects, especially for those who will make themselves available for the numerous life-changing opportunities offered by the federal government.
We are seeing a lot of changes from the federal government now, and I believe by 2020-21, definitely is going to change for good.
Ogun State government added that it is doing everything possible to sustain the gains of the federal government recovery and growth plan in all sectors of the state economy in 2021 and beyond.
Lagos, and the next is from Port Harcourt, and it says that despite the blow dealt on the world by COVID-19, there's hope.
The year 2020 have demonstrated the time-worn notion that nothing defines the human spirit as its capacity for resilience. Nigerian economy has been under tremendous pressure from COVID-19, which necessitated nationwide lockdown that took huge tolls on economic activities and the fiscal standing of the country. Adjusting to the new reality, the federal government embraced the crisis as a window of opportunity to push ahead with some reforms that places the economy on a solid footing. Stakeholders, however, called on government to focus more on non-oil sector and give optimal attention to manufacturing, agriculture, and most importantly, SMEs to drive job creation, improve industrialization, which plays a critical role in the process of economic recovery.
There has to be rigorous program that will have to rejuvenate agriculture, rejuvenate manufacturing down to the service sector.
This COVID-19 have actually opened our eyes that every country should be self-dependent. Because if today those of people here can get everything they want within Port Harcourt and the River State, I don't think they should be looking for foreign things.
Efforts such as the National Survival Fund, free business name registration for 250,000 beneficiaries, creative industries financing, our Central Bank of Nigeria initiatives to provide single-digit financing are all government inputs geared towards economic recovery. However, stakeholders say more still need to be done.
We must first of all take care of the basic infrastructure. And when we do, whatever that we do in order to stimulate the economy will work well.
They, however, called for an enabling environment for micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises, given the role they play in the nation's economy.
Is Maiduguri, Borno State.
The lingering insecurity in Borno State, which is in its 12th year, has brought so many setbacks which affected socio-economic activities and other facets of human lives. Even with the security challenges, human development and investment growth rates have continued to thrive owing to investing in infrastructure, strengthening security, improving educational outcomes, enhancing trade and transport facilitation to help develop value chains, among others. To further restore the lost glory of the state, the Governor Zulum-led administration in November this year came up with a 25-year development plan framework and 10-year strategic transformation initiative geared toward restoring dignity and prosperity of Borno with all-inclusive participation of citizens and other stakeholders.
The civil society were part of the process, and we started by ensuring that the voice and then the needs of the community are prioritized, because that's the essence of the plan.
Borno State government is doing a lot. The governor is seen all over supporting SMEs and also making a deliberate policy towards the development of.
The economic recovery efforts by Borno State government will help rejuvenate the economy, as the government will inject 50 billion naira to support farmers and small-scale businesses, among others. Already, more than 700 small and medium-scale entrepreneurs who are cab sellers and cab dry cleaners benefited from disbursement of over 35 million naira support to enhance their economic base.
2020 has been very good for our people in the business sector or entrepreneurship sector as far as the government of Borno State is concerned.
The state government, through these efforts, economically we shall recover and the growth rate of the state will be enhanced.
The development of SMEs will no doubt contribute a lot to the growth of gross domestic product, especially now with the implementation of the 25-year development plan in Borno State.
Have our break. Let's react to this quickly, and when we come back from break, we'll take some tweets and phone calls to Honorable Farouk. Now, 2020, a lot of things happened besides COVID-19 in Nigeria. We had NSAS, youths, all that. So looking at this, inclusivity and responsiveness by the government, how was it like?
Well, you know, when we talk about like the NSAS, you know, a lot of people complain of non-inclusiveness. And if that was true, the NSAS protesters demanded certain things to be done. The government acceded to that. The government said, okay, we've taken that, we will do them. And remember, these things, you know, need process. It cannot be done overnight. Like NSAS, I mean, stop the SARS, it's been done. Prosecute the, or, you know, the offenders, it takes time. So as regards to that kind of a thing, the government has responded to certain things. Now it has also proved to the government that government, people are watching you. Government, you need to listen to what people are saying. Government, you need to do what we want you to do. But then not for the citizens to make the government, you know, do things like try to blackmail or in a violent manner. Now, when the NSAS came, whether it was the members of the NSAS or hoodlums or whoever, ransacked police stations, killed policemen, we all saw that. And then you have to join that with the security. Now, if all of us are complaining of security, we've seen what happened in Lagos. When police stations were burnt, police withdrew from the streets, now the hoodlums took over. So which means that, look, you know, insecurity does not pay. No matter how bad we think of our security agencies, they are not doing too bad. They are not doing badly. So, I mean, the government responded positively that, look, yes, people are demanding for us to change this thing. Yes, we are going to do it. But then the citizens, you know, some of the citizens did not allow the government to do it how it should be done. The citizens, some, I mean, like those that, you know, started the NSAS, insisted that it has to be done now, today, now, this moment. And what did that lead us to? It led us to chaos. It led us to even the security agencies withdrawing that, look, you need to be alive to do whatever you want to do. So as regards to that, I think the government acted rightly, but whether a government acted slowly, I think to some extent yes, because the government decided to allow the NSAS demonstration to last the number of days it lasted. The government should have stopped it, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 days later, because that was exactly what brought about the Lekki, Mili, which people said 78 persons were killed, 1 person was killed, and so on. So I think in that regards, the government acted in a slow manner, and it must have taught the government a lesson that, look, next time, government will not allow that kind of thing to happen. That was why even government said, look, hey, we shall not allow that kind of NSAS demonstration to take place again, because in as much as NSAS or anybody has the right to demonstrate, other persons have equal right of free passage. So you cannot, in the name of demonstration, block road, stop people from moving, maiming, killing, opening prisons up, doing things that are not right. But whether the demands are legitimate, yes, they are legitimate. Whether some of the things they said should have been done, yes. Should the government do more? Yes. Can we do better? Yes. I think the government must have learned its lesson. Now, if you marry that with the security situation, now, in as much as I personally don't agree with some of the security chiefs, but I have had the privilege of seeing some reports that if you hear one attack where everybody will make noise, I am telling you, I have seen reports where probably 100 attacks were stopped. And nobody knows. I mean, the people, because the government does not need to blow its trumpets. The government is doing what it's supposed to do. So the government does not come to say, look, we have dismayed so number of terrorists, we've done this. There are certain operations that are covered. The citizen will just see free passage, things are done in a normal way, because some people, some of the security agencies have done their work when they're supposed to do it. So in terms of that, I think the government is listening, but the government should listen more.
Okay, thank you. We take a break now. When we return, the program continues, and the focus once again is a review of 2020, bending backwards into what 2021 would look like. Stay with us.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online, or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store.
Well, back to the program, and beginning with a couple of tweets came in while we were on break, and the first tweet coming from Umar Bature is addressed to the MD of the Nigerian Railway Corporation. It says, since Abuja-Kaduna Railway is already in place, will it not be wiser to extend it to Kano? Assuredly, this will be commercially profitable in view of the population and insecurity. Please consider. That's the question you.
Government has already approved that, and the contractor are mobilizing, and government is acquiring right now the right of way. And if not for COVID, as I said earlier, maybe proper work would have been on. I know at the last meeting we had, the minister was insisting with the contractor they should pay off on the compensation so that the right of way could be accessed. And I think it gave them 2 weeks.
So will you see that as work in progress?
2 weeks to see that. Yeah, that's work in progress, because you have to know your right of way to design the route, and if you are going to be bridges or underpasses, to put them in place. So the interesting thing is that the Ibadan Kano has been segmented into 4 to work simultaneously at the same time, so that within 2 or 3 years, the train can get from Lagos to Kano. So, but they are going to be starting from Kano to Kaduna, Ibadan to Ilorin to Mina to Abuja, then Kano to Kaduna at the same time. So, and the survey and everything is ongoing. It may be in the next 1 month, people will see action.
Maybe before we have and that would come to ask a few questions regarding some areas of the nation. What's the update like regarding your plans on your structures around the southeast, southwest corridor?
Yeah, you see, that contract has also been awarded. It's going to cost about $3 billion. And I don't want to blame COVID. And when the government saw that it's going to take time, don't forget, I think sometime last year, a contract was awarded to link Itakpe to Abuja. And it was to be a concession in arrangement. The winner of that is here to move to site because he's still trying to raise funds. So, the government said they cannot wait, especially the minister. So instead of waiting, let's reconstruct what we have at a cost of 3.2, and the government looked at it and approved it. And I also know by maybe January, February, they will be back to site because they have already done the environmental impact assessment, and I think they are going to be real industrial park, and they are going to also link the Bonny Deep Sea. So the land for that, I think, has been acquired too. It's just a matter of time while the contractor will move to site.
Okay. There are 2 tweets here, follow up to Professor Kenny first line of thought. Professor Kenny, if you can hear me, I'm directing these tweets to you, and you have to address them appropriately. Ogbonoho Destiny says, please, is it not possible for Nigeria to generate more electricity that can serve our people? We have everything to retain our position as a giant of Africa. The second line says, coming from Abdullahi Umasani, Despite the global recession in the world, Nigerian government has tried in managing the economy. The sharing of the national cake is superb. Survival fund is a good proof of managing the economy. How do you react to these two tweets, Professor Kenife?
The story of our power is just an incredible one. You know, it beats my imagination that a country as big as we are, ostensibly the biggest economy in Africa, with over 202 million people, compared on per capita of power, compared to South Africa on per capita per power, we are at least 4 times their population, but they have 10 times more power than us. We are around 5,000 and they're over 45,000 megawatts. So it's a factor of 40. So that's very pathetic. And then if we are still with this level of underdevelopment of our power and still the biggest economy, what will happen if we get anywhere like half of the power, per capita power of South Africa? So you can imagine how big Nigeria is going to be. It might be half the size of Africa. But be it as it may, I think I'm persuaded to commend the government for taking power to the mass market, because we can't continue with all the shenanigans going on in the power sector. Every day the story we'll hear is misalignment of one sort or the other between the power generation, gas supply, and GENCO and DISCO, and the TCN inability to carry the power, 50% power loss. It's all big tale of woes. So with the new program of taking power to the mass market, where they are now saying, okay, let's use solar mini grids, let's use all forms of solar-based power. And then CBN says, okay, we're not going to wait for foreign investors because this investor classes, we can't find them. They're missing in action. And then you can see that foreign portfolio investment is vaporized away completely. So CBN now says, all right, we're going to make resources available for whoever wants to invest in this sector, and are committed to building additional 7.5 trillion GDP for the power sector. So now, nobody has any excuse to invest in solar-based power generation. And then that now means that we can all have distributed, and the enabling framework, legislative framework is in gear, because 2005 Power for Reform Act allowed only 1 megawatt domiciliarization of power. But now we have eligible power regulation. We have last mile franchise distribution. We have end-to-end intervention, all supported by the legal framework, and that's why the likes of Siemens can now come in on end-to-end. So the legal hurdle is out. So now we have to see why everybody should invest. Everybody, the level playing field is there now for people to invest in the power, and then cut away this story, this shameful story that we are having every day. Every day you hear that tale of war and a tale of lamentation, reading from the book of Lamentation on power supply.
Jayola, please, I'll come to you. Let me take this issue to Farouk. It looks as though most times when government is inaugurated and work just starts, the next people are start thinking towards election. Now politicians seem to be thinking about next election rather than working collectively towards addressing the national challenge. 2020 and the challenges we faced besides elections.
Well, you see, sadly you can never stop politicians from thinking ahead. In fact, there are some that are already thinking of 2027, as we speak, but, in most cases, there are disputes. When elections are going to take place, so many people will contest for a particular position, and then some will be persuaded that, look, why don't you wait until the next time? Like maybe governorship in a state. They rotate zone by zone. So sometimes there could be clash. So a group will say, okay, why don't you wait until like now 2023? So those that have that, hope against that time will not sit and wait. They will be talking of politics.
It's as a distraction.
Well, exactly, it is. But you can never stop that from happening, sadly, all over the world. But
then that's where the fear of God. But I mean, when you restrict yourself to the oath of office and oath of allegiance, those that are elected to work, those that are elected to serve, should always remember their oath of office and oath of allegiance. Stay and do your work. Nothing stops you from practicing politics. Don't allow that, distraction to distract you. But as I said, oppositions will also come. It's part of the process. They will distract you, and some of milestones you would want to achieve, you have not achieved. There will be problems. Just like this year, COVID, the government wanted to do a lot of things. They couldn't get to do it. So that's another distraction. So it also happens in politics. So distraction will always come anytime, all the time in politics. And as I told you now, there are people already that have started calculating 2027. As I speak to you now, there are some permutations going on. Then, okay, 2023, where will the presidency come from? Where? So then if we agree this time around, next time what happens? So it will continue to go on, but then let us politicians always remember that, look, in as much as politics needs to be played, we should not be distracted by delivering what we said we're going to deliver to the people.
Okay. Still on the economy, Professor Kennefe talked about the econometrics of rejigging the rail sector, and he made a good analysis before we went on break. Through Mumbai, whatever, India to Cameroon into Nigeria. Why was there so much noise for and against the rail line to Niger Republic? Can you give us
maybe before he responds? You see, sadly, unfortunately, sectional interest was brought into it. Instead of us as a people, see us as one Nigeria, one nation. When you develop one section of the country, you are developing everywhere. And look, countries that think ahead, we as a nation should have probably thought of a rail system from Lagos to Port of Spain, so that there will be rail, going from the north, Niger, Mali, down there. So, but then in this country, sadly, there are some people who are saying now, why do you need to put rail from Lagos to Calabar? After all, they have the ports. Just because certain people from other part of the country, just like other persons from other part of the country also go against this and so. But as we try to make ourselves one people, one nation, at least for now, we have no other country but this country. Let us see ourselves as our brother's keeper. Let us see development in whichever side of the country as development for all. If we agree on that, then probably people shouldn't be talking about why rail to Niger Republic, why rail to Calabar, and so on. So if we think along that line, I think then we'll be great.
Okay.
I think I don't want to say lack of knowledge. 15 years ago, when I was even a small person in railway, we've been meeting with Niger Republic because they have been trying to move their product through our port to their country. And we tried it. So we are moving to, what do you call this place now, Jigawa? No, from Kano to Unguru.
Okay.
We tried it sometime, and at that time there was no very good route for them to take their load to Niger. I think we moved 2 or 3, and there has been a committee between Nigeria, comprising of, I think, Finance Ministry, Port, Rail, and Niger government on how to, because it's going to be a lot of revenue that you earn, not only through the rail, but through the port. And you're 20 kilometers in Niger. And as I said, I've not been there. As you have that city, as you have Lagos, so also you have that city to Niger. They are all their export and import because they are landlocked. And if you don't do that, they will go through either Ghana or through Cameroon and carry their either export or import. So I think it was lack of knowledge and understanding. I think people are now beginning to understand that it's good. You don't limit. You see, we have what we call Transnet that operate South African rail. They have taken the pain to to ensure that their rail system run up to mid-Africa, up to Congo. And they move product from Congo and they earn revenue for it. And the country of Congo now ship either out or in through South Africa. And they move their product by rail and they pay for it. So if it's just like you say rail, why should you enter Abuja and cement when you know you have a product to move and earn revenue? It's not because of the owner, because the product is there. People can say, why did you not come to my living room? So you have to weigh the economy. So I think we should be, as you said, we should be thinking beyond just our narrow interest and think broader and see how it benefits the country. I know if another country had said I'm extending rate to Nigeria, Nigeria will still kick. If it was the other way around, they would say, why should they cross our country to come? So it just, with time, I think they will understand and key in. Okay. You see, there is this West Africa corridor that for years we have been talking about, that we have to link rail from here to Senegal so that we have that ECOWAS trade properly routed. And if you have to do that, who do you think will bear the cost? Even not only rail, you talk about the road. So China is talking about this rail, linking the whole world by rail. They are not doing it because of you, they are doing it because of what they are going to get. They can easily, can now move their product easily and cheaply to other countries and faster than by sea. So that's the essence.
Okay, let's go to Jayola. Jayola, dams and reservoirs development for potable drinking water and agriculture in Nigeria. What happened, or what would you say is the assessment for 2020?
Let me just make some comments on the hydropower, which my brother talked about here. You have some hydropower projects that have been on for quite some time, which I believe if government complete these power projects, they are going to help us a lot in improving the power generation that we have in our country. One of them is in Zungeru. That project should have been conflict for quite some time. People will say, what's the problem? Finance, year in, year out. We also have another one in Mambila. The Mambila one has been on for a very long time as well. I see a situation where there are different power generation points. We are talking of hydropower now, not the fuel power, not the solar power, but the hydropower. We have a water resources master plan where many of these hydropower stations are listed and that will be developed. One of the things I would just advise government is to see to that these are developed. Because one of the advantages of hydropower is that once you build it, you have a lot of money. Well, once you build it, the maintenance is really not much, because we are talking of power which just comes like that, just by the head of the water. It's not because you buy fuel or you do something. So I will please advise that we look into this area as well, for us to be able to get more power into this. The second thing I want to talk about is about the food production. You know, we have River Basin Development Authority. There are 12 of them. And one of their functions is to do irrigation, year in, year out, whereby we don't just depend on just rain, but also depend on the water that is stored to be able to produce food during the time when there is no water. So I will also advise that government should do more on this irrigation project using the River Basin Authority. They have been there and they know how they have been helping the nation in getting many of these things done. The third thing I want to hear about is on the rural water supply. Rural water supply is such that federal government, I know, has been able to do quite a lot, and they have been able to also associate with a lot of organizations, and even the state governments. They normally cooperate to be able to do this. But because of these challenges in the rural areas, I think there's a slowdown. I believe with time, we may be able to get right. Because when you look at our population is rising. And we need the water. We can't do without the water. So something has to be done. If you take, you know that we have a lot of people at the rural areas. So rural water supply is very, very important. We know at the cities, government can build and we can continue to manage with whatever we are, but at the rural area, it's a problem because they don't normally have portable water supply that we really need to be able to be healthy. So I pray that government will also look into this. Thank you.
The next line of reports, when we come back, we'll veer into the area of deregulation of the petroleum sector with emphasis on the auto gas project. Our next line of reports, beginning with Kaduna.
The year 2020 characterized by global economic challenges. Many countries are affected with economic recessions as a result of the dwindling resources, which Nigeria is not an exception on. In 2020, Nigeria budgeted over 10 trillion naira, but the budget was reversed as a result of decline of oil price at international markets.
So because of the volatility, government was grappling with revenue generation, and it was actually very difficult because you have to get revenue before you can be able to achieve some certain things sectorally. Like for instance, the budget will tell you the sectoral allocation of resources. So if revenue is dwindling, it suggests that most sectors will actually get a very little percentage.
So this actually affected the economy. So you could see that the prediction, it is likely that in the third quarter, it is likely that, the fourth quarter, the economy is likely to contract between 1.5% to 0.5%. So at the end, the cumulative effect is likely to be, the total contraction of the economy is likely to be, 2%, which means that at least Nigeria tried.
With COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown, which crippled the economy, fiscal policy was introduced by the government, with injecting money directly into the economy to stimulate the economy. For instance, Nigeria Solidarity Support Fund, NSF, was introduced to support critical COVID-19 relief efforts, which 20 billion naira was injected. Micro, small and medium enterprises with 60 billion naira COVID-19 credits targeted on households. Monetary policy was also adopted by the Central Bank of Nigeria to strengthen the economy.
Next up is Oka, Anambra State.
The year 2020 has been quite challenging for the global economy, including Nigeria. COVID-19, falling oil prices in the market, high exchange rates, among other challenges, were attributed as some factors responsible. In the struggle to recover and sustain the growth of the economy, the federal government mid-year rolled out 150 billion naira economic stimulus package through the Central Bank of Nigeria, with other intervention programs such as trader money and conditional cash transfers for the aged to cushion effects of hardship to households and small-scale enterprises. Some beneficiaries in Anambra State who said it gave their lives and businesses lifeline also applauded the federal government for the timely intervention. Anambra State also witnessed infrastructure developments in the year with the construction of Enugu-Onitsha Expressway and the Second Niger Bridge, which road users described as a welcome development.
They are doing a great job on the roads.
We thank the government for restoring the road, because it has been long we've been suffering on this road.
Applauding the federal government's targeted policy interventions in the face of recession, taking bold steps to tackle corruption and insecurity, economic analysts also suggest way forward for 2021.
I think that government has a lot of roles to play in ensuring that our investors stand on their feet.
While COVID-19 continues to pose challenges, government is urged to take bold and decisive actions to emerge stronger from the present economic crisis.
State is next.
Nigeria, a nation that has a crude oil-dependent economy, saw the price of crude oil go down to $30 per barrel in the first quarter of 2020, and also a decrease in the demand for crude oil in the global market, which further affected the nation's economy and led to a negative plunge of the gross domestic product in second quarter of 2020. To cushion the effects thrown up by the COVID-19 pandemic and the negative growth in economy, government introduced various intervention programs, to which experts described as laudable.
One of the cardinal objectives of the economic recovery growth plan is to ensure that we achieve high level of industrialization through supporting our MSMEs by giving them the right enabling business environment to strive.
In fairness, a lot of people that I know that I can mention got those funding. They did on merit, without knowing anybody, without any partisan affiliation, because the government wanted to see that the people who genuinely needed those funds got it. Yeah, it may not be sufficient, but it is something enough to be able to cushion.
To recover from these challenges, financial experts say that certain policies must be revisited to take Nigeria out of recession, such as investing in the agricultural sectors.
Nigeria is more agriculturally placed than even oil-placed.
If a country fails to build critical infrastructure, definitely that country cannot grow.
They were unanimous in their view that with the right policies in place to favor MSMEs, which account for 84% of the country's employment, they will play a vital role in lifting the country out of recession and into its pride of place of being one of the biggest and greatest economy, not just in Africa, but in the world.
Our last report tonight is coming from Jos, Plateau State. If that report is not ready, we proceed now. Now, let's say we are tying up this program and to Farouk now. Let's hold it on. What's your assessment regarding relations between states at the federal level in terms of running government, residual, exclusive, and the concurrent list? Did it flow well?
Well, I think it did to some extent, and also sadly, in this country, most people look at federal government alone. If you quarrel with your wife, it's probably the president. If you don't have drinking water, it's the federal government, And sometimes you find the states shacking in some of their responsibilities. And at the federal level, they've really, really done well in such that you see synergy between all governments, irrespective of party affiliation. But whether there is that reciprocity from states, some yes, some put political undertone to that. But as a whole, so far so not very good. But then also, if you try to bring politics into running of affairs, I don't want to mention state in particular, but there's a particular state that has refused to align with federal government for political, reasons, who suffer? The people of the state. The federal government has a responsibility on each and every state, all the people of the country. So that synergy probably needs to be worked better through probably the Governors Forum, so that, the Governors Forum should try to, impose on all the governors that, look, this is our country. The president is president, not president of APC, but president of Nigeria, which means what is happening in Rivers should affect what's happening in Bayelsa or in Jigawa or in Borno, and whatever happens in Borno happens in Benue and so on. So if the governors see it as the way the federal government sees the states, probably there will be synergy and so on. Then that's when we will run the country as one country, one nation, one people, one government.
Okay, so but still probing further on what I asked, what's your own appeal besides the fact that people see it from the federal level all the time? For instance, by the last briefing of COVID-19 national response, the chairman of PTF said no state has gotten less than 1 billion naira for national response, but they're not getting commensurate response in that. Is it that they just want federal government to only get the blame before they move on?
Well, absolutely. You could see there are even certain states that are downplaying the COVID issues. You know, some of the states did not even tell the public, the states, that the people that we've gotten so amount of money for the response. You know, but then coming back to the people, as I said, we are all the same people. You know, so I think the government of the day, the federal government should not beat its chest. It's just doing its work. Now, whether the state governors try to take the credit or not to do what they're supposed to do is something else. Is all, you know, something different. But let the people, let the people know that now the government has given out 1 billion each. Let the people ask their governors, please explain to us what you've done with that 1 billion. And I know there are some states that also have done good. They've given palliatives to their citizens and so on. And the federal government should still try to do more. You know, so that, as I said, if there is crisis in Plateau State, it affects all of us. You know, so the federal government should try to also follow up, not just to give the money. When the federal government gives the money, there should also be a mechanism to find out that what was done with the money, because that's money outside the budgetary allocation of the state or from the federal allocation that was done. So the federal government needs to send auditors, honestly, from the National Auditor's Office to ensure that that money given for COVID in particular, because we're talking of COVID now this year,
yes,
that has the money being spent on COVID. You remember during the NSAS crisis, there are some states that did not distribute some palliatives that were given by COVID, by the private sector and so on. Some politicians like us, you know, tried to hide those things to use them for Christmas and so on. So in the same line, the government should ensure that kind of thing, you know, is explained to the public. Look, we've sent 1 billion naira to Enugu State, and this is the report they sent to us. Now, the people of Enugu, is it true this thing has been done? If not, let the people ask their governor to explain what they've done with the money.
Okay. Professor Kenife, let me take the next question to you. 2020 witnessed a lot of developments in the oil sector, deregulation of the sector, the auto gas project, and we are saying, despite the challenges we faced within the year, if this project evolves and succeeds in the next 1 year, what's your projection?
I commend the government for the traction that we are having on the PIB issues, related issues, and the restructure of the governance framework in the oil and gas industry. And of course, the gains that we are having in relation to those restructuring and, you know, legal framework and all that. So that making it possible for the SPV vehicle to be able to borrow and manage much more effectively. So that's good. And of course, the gas, there has been, you know, tremendous improvement in the gas plan. So I commend that. To the extent that gas is now being a lot more available to the GENCOs, so that's commendable. Even though the GENCOs generating the power are still having another tale of woes from the DISCOs paying them back. About only 25% of what they give them is what they pay back. So making it even more difficult for them to generate more power. But having said that, there's a lot more that we need to do in the oil and gas industry. I still can't understand why 75 licenses have been issued for private sector modular refineries, and very few of them, a handful, are actually now thinking of coming on stream. Now, look at how much money, how much recourse to our forex that is being demanded by the importers of refined petroleum products. You can kiss goodbye to that if only we can lend to the private sector that want the money to refine refined products, and then get us to a position where we are not only self-sufficient, but we can now export refined product to all the African countries under the AFCTA. So there are mileages there, and the 9 state governors of the Niger Delta, should each of them support at least one modular refinery, maybe 10% or 20% interest, so that it can happen. And because if you keep putting money to the virtually dead government-owned refineries, you know, we have alternatives, and then all these employers that are lying dormant can be employed in or even join the ventures and produce in a private sector-led refined industry. Now, having said that, can you explain to me why in Texas in America we have over 200 refineries and petrochemicals in one state, and it's all mostly private sector? And then in the whole of the Niger Delta region, you can see what the story is. The story is a different story. So there is more to be done. And we're not saying give grants to these companies. We're saying give them loans. Within 2-3 years, you will see what will happen. Because a modular refinery costs about $75 million, maximum $100 million, especially where we don't need catalytic converters, because our oil, our crude has very low sulfur content. So you don't really need catalytic conversion converters for some of them, and that will refine 20,000 barrels. 10 of them doing 20,000 barrels is 200,000 barrels. Our allocation from OPEC is 5,000 barrels. For a start, half of them are being refined by 10. So, you know, and over 3 years they could double and triple capacity. So I think there's a gap there, because we are not still tapping from downstream and midstream investments in the oil and gas sector. And by the way, gas is our wealth, not crude, because we have nearly 200 trillion cubic feet of gas compared to the, you know, in terms of the longevity. If you think that the oil reserve will last for 50 years, then the gas may last for 200 years. So that is actually our main research. And you notice that the prices of gas are not as hit as crude. So I think we need to up our game in downstream and midstream investment in oil and gas sector.
Jayola, well, we looked at 2020, and but despite the challenges, something propels you into the next year. If 2020 was this rough, was this bad, was this good, what propels us to see 2021 as a better year?
The good, the bad, and the ugly. We look at everything like that, especially in the sector of water resources and agriculture. Let me tell you one experience I had this December. I traveled home. And when I traveled home, I discovered that a lot of people were not having the basic water supply just for drinking. And then I did an investigation, and I discovered that a lot of boreholes were drilled, so they cannot get pipe-borne water. And because of that, we have about 100 of them that are not functional. And the question is, why are they not functioning? These boreholes were sunk. Either they were properly sunk or they were not properly sunk. But there was no maintenance culture put in place. It's possible that maybe a stabilizer that is not working, or just something small that is not working, that we could put this thing into to work. So I see a situation where honestly, the state government and the local government, not the federal this time around, we look properly into some of these small things. Our people in particular, it's not the gigantic things that we really need for us to be able to survive. There are these small things. But the resources, even for them to have those small things, are not there. It becomes a problem. So when we look at some of these things that are happening, at times I just say, well, sorry, because for the common people, I believe these are the basic things that we believe we can do for them. Very basic. So basic to the extent that they will be crying, and when it comes to maybe voting or whatever, people will promise them this and that, and at the end of it, they hardly get it. So I commend government for putting these things in place, but I also want a situation where they put in place just maintenance culture, either to train people to be able to handle these things, which is the best way, I believe. So that was what I did for some of the small things that I was able to do for them. Come together. Let's tell you what you can do for you to be able to make sure that you get water from this well. There is water there. And if you don't do these little things, you are not likely to get it there. So I looking at small things also for our people. Because there are a lot of them. We could be talking of gigantic, but these small things for us at the rural areas, they are very important. So I want us to also look at the population at the rural areas for whatever I believe that we want to do. I also look at this idea of joint development, maybe by federal and maybe the state, especially in developing some of these medium schemes. Because we also find a situation where the states, they will say they want to do this, the resources at times is money. You know, almost all of them depend on money from the federal government. And even when they go out to get loans and whatever, it's not something that will be too much for them to be able to use. So I also believe that if they come together, they will be able to put this thing together. For me, as I said, I look at water resources as very key for our people. And government should please look into that, because that is what they really need. Thank you.
We have touched on it briefly, but let's touch on it. United Nations and other global bodies recently commended the federal government under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, specifically on the release of the abducted Kankara schoolboys, which is very, very historic. What are your comments?
Well, my comments are, commendation to the government and to the people. First of all, as people of faith, people prayed, for the safe return of the children, and thank God they were released. We also pray that Leah Sharibu also is released. We also pray that all other, captives in the hands of bandits and Boko Haram are released. But as I said, yes, government could be commended for doing its job, but whether UN or anybody commends the president for doing the job, it has been done. And God knows the government has clear intention to free all captives. But hiccups here and there, those that are released, thank God. Those that are not released, we keep praying that may God in his infinite mercy see us through these challenges as a country, as a people. Let us see it as our collective challenge, not challenge of the government. As I said earlier, who is government? We are government. So we thank the United Nations for commending the president. Okay. But then more work needs to be done. As I said, there are security challenges in this country. The government needs to look at it more seriously, so that sense of hope should be given to the people by the government. The government needs to do some drastic measures into 2021, so that people will have the vigor, the thinking that yes, now the government is up and about to ensuring the security of lives and property of the people. But as people of the faith, we should continue to pray that may 2021 be better than 2020. In fact, I hope and pray this world, the whole world, never sees 2020 again.
Okay, well, you have solidly reinforced that 2021 should be better than 2020. So what's your own position?
I think that's not going to be any year like 2020 in our lifetime. And on a serious note, we are hoping that 2021 is going to be better than 2020 in all ramification. And you see, when you go to the bottom, there's nowhere to go to again apart from rising. We hope from 2021 we will start coming up and things will start looking up, and we should never give up, and we should be hopeful, because if you have survived 2020, there's no way you will not do better in 2021. As for my own area, I think we are quite hopeful, and the government want to turn the whole country to reconstruction site. And as a person, I'm quite positive that we will get there. And even beyond this present government, I don't think there will, except a mad person, that will want to draw the hand of Nigeria or Nigeria back based on what the present regime is doing. It's not just real. The infrastructure has to be in place.
Okay.
You have to have the structure to have, as I said, if you have a house, whether you eat pepper soup or garri, nobody will know. But if you are empty on the outside, that's when people will see what you are eating. So if we have the infrastructure, I think we are covered.
Okay, before we quickly go, let me take to Professor Kenife, just a last sentence. The African Continental Free Trade Area will begin trading 1st January 2021. The whole process started in 2020, and by 2021, 1st January, trading will begin. What are your prospects? One sentence, please.
Opportunity. And I know that many people are not clear what competitiveness Nigeria has to offer. But I'm very, very confident because we have our banks in many countries in Africa. Nigeria, there are 90 million MSMEs in Africa. 44.5 million of them are from Nigeria. Half of the MSMEs in Africa are from Nigeria. Yet Nigeria is 18% of Africa population. But we are punching beyond our weight to have 50% of the number of businesses there. We know our binding constraints. We've said that. Transportation networks, transportation infrastructure, power, all of these constraints we know. But with capacity to do business is Nigeria. Everybody knows that. And we have a diaspora that is putting in $26 billion here from abroad. So we have also big businesses like Dangote that is all over the place in Africa with cement and all other capacities. So we can punch. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But I think one thing that the government should do is to be prepared to, when you're carrying too much fat, you have to slim down, otherwise you'll die of the fatness or the obesity. So we agreed, the private sector came together in March during COVID and did two things. One, they poured out money, as you know, just on the COVID, they put money out to support the economy. Two, they said, look, we've had enough of the infrastructure problem in the country. They are setting up a private sector company called Infrastructure PLC to be capitalized with 15 trillion naira and asks government to give $3 billion in a sovereign guarantee. And then they will take away those 20 to 26 major national infrastructure projects, then rework them and then run with those, obviously, or with BPP vehicle. That can now free the federal government from all these infrastructure problems. You know, you're not going to win if you continue in this way. You've got to get the private sector to drive this so that you can focus on social inclusion, education, health, working with state governments and subnational entities in agriculture, getting young people. You know, we have so much more to do there. Get the private sector in, and then they can run with these infrastructure projects. And of course, government is also responding by doing more with BPE on privatizing more assets. And you can see that in some of them coming into the budget. Over 1.2 something trillion is coming in there. So we can see some traction there. But we should focus on that because that is so key. Because once you can win these infrastructure programs away from federal government, then it will have the agility to do more and support businesses going into AFCTA. Of course, we have lessons to learn, and I can tell you one lesson. The border closure experience taught us something. It made us prove that, yeah, there's a lot of leakage, so customs were earning extra 5 billion naira a day, and then the arms were coming in here, and we could find out the theaters of war, drugs and all of that, dumping of goods, injurious to our health. All of those malpractices were dealt with by getting the neighbors to agree on what we're going to do. But in the end of the day, AFCTA will come in two ways. It's going.
Our time is just up, and we thank you for being on the program tonight. Also on Jayola Akinola, it was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight. Thank you so much for your time. And back here, Fidet Okira, Managing Director of Nigerian Railway Corporation, and also we had a politician, industrialist, and farmer, former minority leader of the House of Representatives, Honorable Farouk Adamu. It was nice having you on the program. Thank you. That's it on Tuesday Live tonight. We looked at a review of 2020 propelling into 2021. Thanks for your tweets. Bye-bye.
This is the network service of the NTA.